Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Ted Lasso, Season 1, Episodes 3 and 4. Last time I failed to call Episode 2 Biscuits. This time I will not fail to call Episode 3 Trent Krim, the Independent, and Season 1, Episode 4, For the Children. In these episodes, mostly I just, in my soul, desperately want Rebecca's husband to be brought down. Just sunk. Just like ripped apart. Like,
oh my.
I really, everything, just hate him so much.
How good is he in this? Like, you...
Welcome to Unspoiled.
Sorry, I got wrapped up.
Rashawn is just out here not letting me... Anytime that we do a live and I do an intro, you, like, completely forget what an intro is.
I do. It's true.
Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I am Rashawn, and this is my very first time podcasting with Natasha ever, clearly. So I am hoping that you'll just bear with me as I get acclimated.
Is the guy playing her husband... He looked to me like, what's his face from Buffy?
It is. It's Giles.
It is? What's his name? Stuart Head? Is it Stuart?
Anthony Head.
Anthony? Yo, he really plays gross really well.
He really does.
He's a villain in a Doctor Who episode, and I thought he was fantastic. And I said that I wanted him to play villains more often because he was, like, so good. Mm-hmm. This is not what I meant. I hate this.
There was a show on Sci-Fi Network that I can't remember. It was called Fallen or something. It was about a future, you know, sort of a post-apocalyptic future where angels fell and they live on Earth now. And he plays a really, like, a villain, and he's so smarmy and he just really just dives into these roles. It seems like he relishes them.
Maybe I'll watch that, because his role as a villain, it was just like, it was such a stupid storyline, and he still, like, nailed that shit. It didn't matter.
He's also still looking pretty good, too, I thought.
Our taste in men is so polar opposite. It is like, we occasionally will agree, but it's pretty rare. Most of the time, you're just like, I mean, I guess. All right. So let's start this. Let's begin with the first episode, which it turns out we have averted the crisis of these photos being released to the press. Much to the chagrin of Rebecca, who is already up and dressed and made up at 6 a.m.
She is about to have
lunatic.
The best day ever. She has got like
this is like a little kid going downstairs and grabbing his fucking stocking and just being like, Santa was here half an hour ago and I'm awake. I felt so bad. She settles down at her desk. She's got her tea. She's got her tabloid, and she looks, it's not on the front page. She opens it up. It's not on the second page. She starts flipping through it. It's not on any page. And she loses her mind.
Her face is just, she's going through the paper faster and faster. It's getting so crinkly.
The worst. It's so funny how much they make me, like, root for her in this moment, even though I don't want that fucking photo out there. But I just want her to, like, get what she wants.
Right, yeah.
Her.
when she calls Higgins.
Oh, my God. Are you in the office? Of course. Mm-hmm.
When she calls, she's Siri calls shithead. And then, like, that's just
like, I don't even know. You know what? I can't go down rabbit holes, but I will say I am very curious about his family. He has 4 boys sitting at the table with him. Mm-hmm. And one of them has a real, like, look to him as he goes rushing out the door. And there's a vibe of, like, they don't really respect him. But it's really hard to tell in that, like, one instant. It felt like the kid was rolling his eyes like, oh, yeah, I'm running as soon as she calls you kind of thing. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But I like to think that that's not the actual relationship he has with them. I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see. Maybe. We'll see. I don't know how much we get to see of that. And, of course, she tells him to come to her office, but because he is not at his office, it takes a minute. So Ted scoops him, coming in with his cookies, which Rebecca grabs like they're a life raft.
Yeah, yeah.
And just starts, like, she, like, sniffs the box like it's weed.
The whole thing.
Like, it's just like, oh, God, thank you. I was like, honestly, that's fucking a mood, though.
It's a weird, like the biscuits, like, she, clearly, because she's, like, so disgusted and disappointed, you know, and the biscuits are like, oh, thank God. But also they're coming from the person that you're disappointed that you weren't able to destroy. It's a really weird kind of...
Yeah. She's trying to get him out of the office. Talks about branding. He makes a cow joke. And just very patiently sits and waits for that to land. And then just kind of like, if you weren't you, I would have killed. And I was like, well, it's kind of why they say know your audience, bruh. But he made a stab at it. He gets up and goes downstairs and runs into Tinsley, right?
Keely.
Where'd I get Tinsley?
I don't know.
What is that? Oh, I know what it was.
I know she plays in a couple other shows.
No. There was a tweet from Paul F. Tompkins the other day, and it was a screenshot of a tweet from a gossip rag. And it said something like, Brittany Keel takes model Tinsley something to be lover, and he screenshot it and shared it, and he said, out of these 2 photos of a man and woman, both beautiful, I have no idea which one is Tinsley and which one is Brindley. Or whatever the names were. And I was like looking at them and I was like, wow, I don't either. I do not have my finger on the pulse. And so the name Tinsley just sort of embedded in my head. Because they were British, I think, and he's a footballer. I think that's where I got it. Or no, he was the model. That's what it was. Keely has managed to keep the paper from publishing this because she's got somebody that she knows. Is it her uncle?
I think she just says
somebody that's like close to her.
I think she just says, I have a friend that works there.
Oh, okay.
But before he runs into Keely, he has the coach session with Beard where they're going over the plays. And Nate's there. And I love this little moment. It's so good. They're discussing how poorly they played in the previous game. This show is so filled with jokes. There's too many to cover in every episode. But I told you it's like dense. Like they don't waste a second. Mm-hmm. But this joke with Nate, where they're talking about they need like ideas, and he's clearly got something he wants to say, but he's like choking. He can't bring himself to do it. And then they have to like push him to be like, do you have something to say? And he mumbles, and they're like, I'm sorry, we can't hear people who don't have any confidence. He raises his voice like just a half of a decibel, and they're both like, whoa.
I love that they do it exactly at the same. Like this is a bit that they have honed, and they have it down.
Good, like Beard like flies out of his chair and everything. It's so good. And then they did a little strut. He's like, we're gonna try it on. Maybe it'll be a nice silhouette. I might walk right out of the store. It's just
this Nate is like. Have you seen the photos of that little, I think it's like either an anteater or an armadillo, but he's always sort of crouched over his hands and he stands on his back feet and his like paw. And somebody tweeted pictures of this animal and said he always looks like a servitor about to deliver bad news.
Oh, I know what you're
like,
talking about.
Superior.
Yeah.
And that is what Nate looks like to me. And the whole time he's like, I have an idea. No, I don't. Yeah, I mean, no, I don't. I don't. What am I doing? What am I saying? Of course I don't. It's a bad idea. And even as he's like, no, give it to me. He's like, I have it written down here. It's so stupid. It's embarrassing. I can't even believe I'm handing this to you.
He's got like pockets full of stuff too, like all that paper that comes out of his pocket.
It's crafts from his niece. They have this play that he has suggested that winds up working really well. And the first time that they play it, you see how like Jamie is not into it because Jamie isn't making the score.
Right.
Jamie is a decoy. I'm very interested to see if he has like comes to terms with that any better, because we did 2 episodes. So the second of these 2 starts with them playing another official game that they are losing. And I am assuming go on to lose again. Like, because it's like we start the episode at the halftime break.
Yeah.
And we never see the second half.
They never really, I don't think they really say how that game went.
So I'm going to assume that shit did not like work. And I don't know if it's because Jamie straight up wouldn't do the thing or if it didn't play.
I know, when they go to the gala, Rupert says something about he doesn't like the 2 games. Like, we did poorly in the 2 games. So I'm assuming he's talking, those are the 2 games and he lost the second one as well.
Yeah.
But you're right. Like, there's not like a big part of the plot where they go back to that game and it's like a whole thing where we see that they lost and they're in the locker room and all that shit. All we see is them about the fucking brawl.
Oh, which, honestly, I have no problem with. Let's go, team. Like, I do not think it's a good idea, and Ted is right to do what he does, but also, like,
I mean, sometimes you
as a lady, I'm not going to be mad about these men beating on each other. That's fine.
Sometimes you got to let them get that shit out. It's good for the team. It's good for the team. That's what I've always heard. Says a girl who's never been on a team.
It's me, I'm team.
So after the thing with Nate, then he runs into Keely and they're in the hallway. How cute is she? She's so cute. I love her so much.
Okay. I'm just going to say this now, and I'm not sure if this is anything. I want her to wind up with Roy?
Roy. Oh, Roy Kent.
Roy. Yeah. Real bad.
Dead sexy. I want me to end up with him. First of all,
he is dead sexy. It took me a little while to kind of be like on the same page because he's just so angry that precedes him in every scene, and I was just so overwhelmed by how angry he was. His hotness like failed to penetrate.
That's a good way to describe it. I was overwhelmed by how angry he is.
Yeah. But Keely has a couple of moments with him. A couple where there is some heat. Like, real chemistry. And I was just like, And she winds up bidding on him, and she's got him for an evening or an afternoon or whatever the fuck. So I don't know if she's going to just give that to somebody else or if she's
lost.
Gonna go.
She lost the bid.
Oh, did she?
Yeah.
Oh, who won? Was it the old lady?
The old lady won, Roy.
Oh, good for her. Good for her. I'm a little sad then, though, because I was hoping that would, like, lead to something.
Yeah.
The moment when he comes into the club and, like, faces off with Jamie, she is clearly into it. Like,
she seems...
There's just...
she seems deeply impressed.
And Jamie, like, gives her a look because he can tell, you know?
I love when he's just like such a child after vanilla vodka.
So cutting.
But we have jumped ahead a little bit.
I know, but wait, there's one more I just want to talk about real quick. And that is when Jamie is like afraid about the old lady bidding on him, and her and Roy are both joking about how far he has to go with this woman depending on how much she bids. And Jamie starts getting genuinely freaked out. But Keely and Roy have teamed up to pick on Jamie. And I was here for it. So between those 2 things, I'm just like, look, she mentions how she's older than Jamie. So she's very age appropriate for Roy. And it's a level up. if you like dating footballers, how about like a mature footballer? He's still hot. Hotter.
I mean,
it's just going to be a different vibe.
In a world where there's a Roy Kent that's available and a Jamie Tart that's available, I personally don't see how there's any competition.
No. Mm-mm.
That is just me.
I don't really see how Jamie is a good lover either. Like, he does go down on her. She has to sort of like tell him.
How awesome is that?
But
that's part of the, like, that's how that scene goes, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm trying to think of other TV shows where a woman character is like in that position, and a guy, you know, is making a move, and they're gonna make out, or they're gonna bang one out real quick before the party or whatever, and she's just like, yeah, no, get down.
Yes. She says down boy, and I thought she meant like not now, but she meant literally like go down boy, and I was like, oh, okay. This is part of like I told you about that show Motherland, Fort Salem.
Yeah.
Low level spoilers for that, but there is an episode where it's all about what if witches were real and like came out and helped us win the Revolutionary War in the United States. And what it would look like to have them then built into our government as like an entity of the army. They have like 2 separate military schools for male and female witches. And then once a year at Beltane, they have a celebration where they get together and just fuck.
Oh.
And
okay.
It's a matriarchal society. And it is such a fucking trip to watch a show that has decided to treat the men like women are treated in most media. So the bus full of hot dudes rolls up and they get off and the girls are gathered around whistling at them and making fucking comments to them and like eyeballing them from the side and just just
objectifying the fuck out of them.
Completely. And then at one point, like the 2 girls who are like the richest and also have like the highest pedigree kind of thing, they each get 2 boys and like go off, and there's like a full on like scene of them with the 2 guys and her being like, okay, now the 2 of you kiss, and she just sits back and like watches them making out, and then they like collapse onto her, and I was like, oh my god, this is so weird to see. I'm not used to it being flipped like this, you know?
I might have to watch that now.
It's really fun. It's just a really interesting thing to see, like the matriarchal society, how it manifests, you know, and not necessarily that it's like better for anyone, because it certainly got its issues, but it's just, there are some things that you just take so for granted being portrayed a certain way. Mm-hmm. And when it's flipped, it just feels completely fresh, even though it's not actually fresh. It's just the same thing. Is there a cat there?
There is a cat lurking. I caught her with like one paw up, almost grabbing this.
Oh, it's the wires. Them cats and the wires.
I cannot wait till she grows out of this.
Okay, all right. So Keely tells him about the photos. They go up to speak to Rebecca, who has to promise that it won't be run. And I was sort of thinking, is she just saying that and she's going to let it be run anyway? But it seems like she did put a stop to it, because otherwise Keely was going to pursue figuring out who it was that hired the photographer.
They have that moment in a hallway where she's rhyming, and she's like, you have no idea how much this country loves rhyming.
Oh my God.
And first she's like, they're going to say...
That's so good.
They're going to say, like, you know, you're trying to make out, like the coach is making time with the tart or whatever. And he's like, I see, you know, a man helping feed a young woman who is not defined by her relationship.
She just chew it around, and he says, you got bars. She says, yeah, I'm adorable, and I'm, what does she say? And I can rhyme. Of course they want to destroy me.
I'm cute as a button, and I can rhyme my ass off. No wonder they want to destroy me. So, yeah, they go into Rebecca's office right as Rebecca is yelling at Higgins about the failure to get the story placed. Mm-hmm. And she says something like, did you use an alias? Did you use a burner phone?
And he says, I'm not a spy. I'm a secretary, and she's
Right.
like, yeah, and you're just as good.
Right.
One is the other. And he
You're
says thank
equally
you before he
proficient.
realizes.
His face wouldn't...
Wait. There is nothing like an insult that takes a second to sink in.
Oh my God. And Rebecca is really good at those. There's like, and she really gets Higgins with them all the time. You know,
He is not ready for them. He thinks, hey, Higgins, have you not come to terms yet with the fact that she will not be complimenting you? It just won't happen. Just give up. Stop. Get some help.
And
anyway.
So they come into the office asking for her help. They're coming to her to help them squash this story. Which, again, is just like, when, you know, as a viewer, you know that Rebecca is low-key the villain here, even though we all just adore her. But watching, like, our friends, our people, our victims come to her for help.
The wronged parties.
Right, and they're so earnest in their, like, appreciation for her help.
When she says she can have it killed with a phone call, Ted says something about how, like, strong and powerful she is, and she does a flex at her desk, and then they go off talking about her arms. And she doesn't seem to take those compliments as compliments. She seems, like, kind of annoyed by it, and I was like, girl, that is kind of like, being told you look like an action figure, there is nothing bad in that. What are you upset about?
He says something like, I wouldn't mind, I would pay to watch you and Michelle Obama arm wrestle. And she's like, that's something I'd never been told before. And then she's like, yeah, you do have action figure arms. And she's like, and yeah, there's another one.
I just don't see what there is to be upset about. Like, just be like, oh,
arms
thanks.
are incredible, though.
This woman could be She-Hulk. You know? If we decided to age She-Hulk up, she just could be. She's also very tall. Like, it would just be great.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
So, yeah, she says that she's going to get the story, get the story put down. And is that when she tells them? No, later on she tells them what the deal is, right?
Next they go down and they have the practice where Jamie is kind of being a brat. And they're picking on Nate, as usual, a little bit in the locker room, calling him gaffer. And then Ted gives everybody their gifts, which is each person gets a different book based on their personality. I didn't see what most of them were. Jamie got
The Damned and The Beautiful and the Damned by Fitzgerald.
Who got worse than Scott Card?
Sam got Ender's Game.
Oh, okay.
And Roy got Wrinkle in Time, and then the rest of them we don't see. Though there is an amazing moment of Isaac with his, and he's shaking it, and then he's like trying to listen.
Oh my God. So I don't know anything about Beautiful and the Damned, and I've never read Ender's Game, so I don't have any
I just did
perspective on that.
A quick Google on the two. Jamie's book is that story is about a rich kid, an heir, a young, arrogant, cocky heir to some kind of fortune or something that's just incredibly privileged and cocky and needs to learn that those aren't the ways to be.
Gotcha.
I never read Ender's Game. Did you say you did or you didn't read that?
I didn't. No, I haven't.
The quick Google thing was just something. I guess the main character is that's sort of destined for greatness, but has to get confidence and courage to believe in himself and become sort of a great leader, I think.
Gotcha.
And then Wrinkle in Time is Wrinkle in Time, and that one the show actually tells us what it's about, because that's I guess the most important one.
That one, it's so funny because when I saw it was Wrinkle in Time, I was kind of like, huh. I thought it was maybe more about how he has lost his wonder at life, because that book is so fantastical and comes back to basics about just treating people decently and the way that we express ourselves and individuality. So I kind of was like, maybe it's just about sort of reconnecting with things. And it seemed to sort of go with how he was at the school talking to the kids as well. But then when it's like mentioned about Meg accepting leadership, I was like, oh, okay. I mean, for me, that's not the enduring message that I walked away from the book with. But I also read it as a kid, and it's really hard sometimes when you grow up to like recontextualize the content of something and be like, oh no, what they meant to say was this.
I haven't read it since a kid either. Did you watch the movie?
Yeah.
I didn't watch it. I wanted to support it. I really did, but I just never got around to watching it, and I felt really bad about that. I still feel bad about that. It was such a shame.
It felt like it was too glossy for what I feel like the story is, and it just, for me, the design was completely wrong for the whole vibe of that story, which for me is actually pretty simple. Like, yeah, there's travel to different worlds, but that's really not what's the big deal about it. And it felt like they leaned so far into the spectacle, and they completely changed a bunch of the ending in a way that was truly like, why? So
really?
It was, yeah, I did not care for it at all. Yeah. But anyway, so that's the scene that we have here. And of course, Jamie takes his book and just fucking trashes it because that's how he rolls.
It's how he gets down. Like, he doesn't even, like, try to hide that he's throwing it in the trash. Like, put it in your book bag and throw it in the trash when you get home. Just right in the garbage in front of the whole team. I
kind of want Ted to have, like, fished it out of the trash and just put it back in his locker and repeatedly do that every single day until he has to at least take it home if he doesn't want to see it the next day. Like, just, you know, if you're going to throw it away, do it outside the building. Because it's going to wind up back in that locker.
He would just be like, how'd this get back?
So this is when Roy gets fed up with how they're picking on Nate, and he goes to Ted, trying to get him to do something about it.
Yeah.
And Ted, very rightfully, is like, teachers trying to tell kids not to pick on another kid makes it worse. Yep. And Roy's like, so you're not going to do anything? And he just says, no. And it doesn't even seem to occur to Roy to, like, do something himself. Eventually, when he starts to get mad enough, he finally is like, well, somebody has to do something. But it takes so long for it to, like, click for him.
He's so disgusted. And he's also, he's disgusted that Ted won't do anything. And he's also disgusted because he knows that Ted is trying to work him.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. Fuck him, fuck Jamie, whatever. But then, like, it doesn't really take that long. Like, it's like a scene later, he goes to Jamie in the gym and is like, stop fucking around with Nate.
In the meantime, he encounters Keeley outside and tries to prove that he is not easily manipulated.
That scene is so
which
great.
Keeley disproves with like 6 half sentences.
Before we get to her amazing deconstruction of Roy Kent to Roy Kent's face,
which is another reason they belong together. But continue.
He first yells at her, "I'm looking for your prick boyfriend. You sure know how to pick him." And she's like, "Didn't your last girlfriend like steal your watch and sell it for drugs?" And he yells, "I don't need a phone and a watch."
I don't know why that got me so bad. I think it's that he just doesn't deny it or bother getting defensive. He's just like, not even what kind of idiot would even need both things? You're the dumb one. I'm not the dumb one. I was just like, all right, sure, Roy, okay.
And then Keeley does the impression of him after she like just almost makes his head explode, because he does an impression of Ted.
Mm-hmm. That I will not attempt to, because trying to imitate an English man imitating a Southern American accent, even though he's not really supposed to be Southern, but it's like kind of a Southern accent.
Oh, because I guess I
impossible.
imagine
I'm not doing it.
Like over like in other countries, the distinction between like Kansas and Georgia, like, you know, fuck to them.
Sure.
Also, the finger guns really sell it when he's like pew pew pew.
Oh my God. And so, yeah, her thing is, I play a game for a living, but I'm always mad. And there is something about breaking it down like that. I play a game. Mm-hmm. You have, like, the best life you could have, really. And she leaves, and he just says, that was pretty good, actually.
His willingness, like, even though he's not admitting it to anybody else, he's really just admitting it to himself, right? But his willingness to admit it right in the moment is just, I don't know, it's so fucking good. It's just like,
this is age. This is what age does to you. It brings you to a point where you start to see yourself clearly, and you just have to be like, yeah, that's how I am. And it just like really comes forward later with him and Jamie, and him immediately being like, I can be like that sometimes. And then now it's your turn to say I'm kind of right. And Jamie just says, I don't want to. And that's like, that's it. That's youth in a nutshell. And I just like, this reminded me of, again, I'm going to make this comparison even though I don't believe that you should have an affair with Owen. But the two of you together...
Where are we going?
The two of you get together and just mock me so mercilessly because you both know me really well and you both just kind of do oh, are you like this? And I'm like, no, I'm not like that. And then the other one is like... She's being just like that. Look at her. Oh and I'm just like, shut up. And then I have to laugh because I'm like, oh, I'm being exactly like that.
You know, there are times where I'm so grateful that Steve is just so, like, prickly and not wanting to, like, be friends with anyone, and no one wants to be friends with him. Because you and him, if you ever became really good friends, you guys would eviscerate me.
Roast you.
Oh, my God. It would. I went to the grocery store one of the days. It was like, we just needed sugar. And I had to go pick up a prescription. And I was like, I'll grab 2 bags of sugar, a thing of coffee, and whatever. No big deal. Bitch. Why did I buy 2 bags of brown sugar? I just fucking wasn't like, what the fuck?
You got brown sugar?
I just wasn't paying attention. I don't know what the fuck. It was...
It's like sending my dad to the store.
That's what Steve said. Steve said, it's like sending my dad to the store. That's exactly what he said. Holy shit, that's exactly
we need to be friends. This is it.
No, you and Steven cannot ever be friends.
I'm gonna contact him. I have my ways. I'll figure it out.
He said, literally, that is what he said. It's like sending my dad to the store.
See,
so
I had said that we should like do a little trip together for my 40th birthday and your 50th birthday, but I'm reconsidering and thinking maybe we should do like a surprise roast and like invite all of our friends and family and just fucking roast you, and that'll be the entire event.
I don't care for that. I don't like that.
I'm thinking about, like, the imitation that he does of Ted and what my imitation of you would look like. And I don't even know how that would be.
Oh, God, no. No. Jamie said it's only fair if we also roast you.
You can roast me for my 50th. It's a rite of passage. 50th birthday roasting.
Oh,
I feel like that's a
I
good
feel like
age
turning
to do that.
50 is suffering enough. Why are you adding to my suffering?
It's all to document the rich life you've lived.
I can't get over that fucking brown sugar, you guys. When he told me that, all I said was, of course I fucking did. I am such an
How did you
asshole.
not notice? Isn't brown sugar in, like, clear bags?
It was in the same exact packaging that I'm accustomed to. Okay. And what really fucked me up is when I tell you I got all the way down on my knees because I was comparing, like, because everything's so fucking expensive. Mm-hmm. I was trying to decide, do I want to carry one big bag or 2 little bags, and which one was more cost effective. So I was down there looking at how I know that bag of brown sugar I bought was 3.5 pounds. I was down close enough to see it was 3.5 pounds. Did not see it was brown sugar. Don't know.
Yo, this is how Owen is too. When I send him to the store, I have to send him a photo of the label, and even then it's sort of like iffy, but it's better. But if I just tell him an item, assuming we've used the same item for the last 7 years that I've lived here, he surely knows which one. No, he does not. He absolutely does not know which one. It is a fool's errand.
Steve called me the dad, and in my head I said, I'm the Owen.
Yup.
I am the Owen in my relationship. But you know what? Being an Owen is a good thing too.
Sure.
It has its benefits.
I'm just thinking,
it's not all, you know.
Like the thing with me and Owen,
it's not all brown sugar.
The thing with me and Owen is that he is like much more dour than me a lot of the time, and I sort of managed to bring some of the sunniness. But I know that Steve doesn't really bring sunniness. That's not his role.
Oh, that's not what he brings to the table. It's not sunniness.
I mean, I'm not entirely a sunny person. Don't get me. I'm not trying to claim that, but
what he brings to the table is forcing the little bit of sunniness I have to be amplified, so it can be sunny enough for the two of us. That's what he does.
Okay. And see, this is another reason why I think Keely and Roy would be good. She is so sunny. If you had, if she, for example, were to hook up with Ted, it's too much sun. They would completely leave the planet. You need someone holding it to the ground. You know?
Right. They really would. They would just freaking fly up into the clouds. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Honestly, I'm low-key shipping Ted with Rebecca a little bit because she would keep him held to the ground. But also, I just don't know how any of that would work beyond the very basic outlines of their personalities. So
yeah. Keely goes and brings Rebecca a present for getting rid of the story.
Yes!
It's a little cactus.
It's like you. Strong and a little prickly. And they have this great bonding moment. This is so good. I love the more mature woman befriending the woman who's reaching a point where she's realizing she's aging out of the behavior she used to indulge in. It's not like a more mature woman just talking to a 20-something being like, girl, what are you doing? This is somebody who's leaving the 20-somethings and starting to ask herself, girl, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah.
And this just hit for me a lot. Even in my short time working for that place in Connecticut when I was living with my mom, Hot Table, that sandwich place, and I was the oldest person on staff beyond the managers, and all of the young women were just younger than me enough to come to me for advice and ask me, things. And so I became kind of the mom. And it's a weird place to be, to realize that oh, you're going through a thing that I distinctly remember also going through. And maybe I can keep you from suffering the way that I did. And maybe I can't, but I sure wish somebody had said this to me,
Yeah. I love the moment where Keely announces, I have decided not to be afraid of you anymore.
Yes. And also, I'm talking about Rebecca, helping out Keely, but Keely is bringing some, young energy to Rebecca as well. Because Rebecca mentions the naked photo, and Keely's like, you would not have brought that up if you weren't desperate to show somebody.
Which is
Please,
true.
Can I see it?
Because she's like, that's a really specific example you just gave me. And she's bringing that, I don't know, that, not just youthful energy, but sort of helping Rebecca connect with sort of a confidence. you know? And she shows it a picture, and Keely is just, like, legit, like, oh my fucking God, those are spectacular. She says, where did you get them?
I love Rebecca, my mom, like, with this incredulous voice.
And what is she?
I was kind of thinking, and I don't know if this is ever gonna, but I was kind of thinking that maybe Rebecca would be like, instead of like leaking the photo of Keely and Ted, what if I leak this photo of me in Majorca on this boat because I look damn good, and everybody will be kind of like, oh, okay, girl. But there is no way for a woman to like leak a nude photo of herself and come out ahead in the press. It just
absolutely
wouldn't work.
Absolutely not. I love too that when Keely is talking to Rebecca, she says, because they're talking about the invasion of privacy from the tabloid photos of her and Ted, and she says something to Rebecca like, "Remember your divorce?"
Oh my God.
Which is like, you know, an absurd thing to say, but the crux of what she's getting at is just like how unfairly Rebecca was treated. And we know that Rupert was the dog in a relationship. You know, we learned that he was like a serial cheater and all this other stuff. And yet he comes out. What does Rebecca say? Like, men like him, people will always forgive them, or they always come out unscathed, or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And it's really true in a lot of ways, you know. She didn't, as far as we know, Rebecca is the harmed party in this marriage, and yet she is the one that is constantly being humiliated, you know. So she's not likable. Yeah, she's cold and distant, and you know, all this stuff, and even though it's not like explicitly said, you get the feeling that the public is almost like, well, of course Rupert wants to go have, you know, fun with someone. Yeah. Look at her. You know, she's all uptight or whatever. You know, like, who could blame him is the kind of energy it feels like, you know? Which we get to see in action when we get to episode 4.
Yeah. The thing that she tells Ted, fucking Ted, she says, I talked to the owner of the Sun, and he says you talk to God?
It's the commitment in the way that line is delivered.
This is when I say to him what he says to Nate later, I appreciate you, but now is not the time. And she says they agreed to not run the photos, and he starts cheering MVP, and she has to talk him down. But they want to do an interview with you. And they are going, it's a reputable paper, The Independent. They're doing a profile. And it's going to be Trent who does it. Trent with the lion's mane.
That fantastic head of hair.
Trent with the elbow patches.
I don't know if it's real or not. I saw a picture of him floating around on the Twitters with short hair. And I don't know if he's wearing a wig or if that's his hair, real hair on the show. But with the short hair, it's a completely different person.
That's the thing. It's wild how much hair can change your face.
Yeah, it's like I wouldn't recognize him. Like, I didn't recognize him when I saw the picture.
The guy who plays... have you watched What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show?
I started watching it. It's only in like a couple episodes, but yeah.
The guy who plays Nandor,
it was.
He is super hot. He is like honky. But in the show, they have him in this wig, and he's got this goofy sort of like mannerism, and you're just kind of not seeing it. And he's supposed to have been this like plunderer and raper, but he's just so mild-mannered now. Go look up the actor, just straight up.
I will, because I'm having a hard time picturing any of this.
He is fine as hell. But anyway, yeah, so this dude is going to spend the day with Ted, and he's sort of mocking him over the fact that, like, the day that he's going to do the interview, Ted just happens to be visiting a bunch of kids, but it does not feel at all like Ted set that up for this in any way.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really feel like it. As far as we know, he's just getting noticed that the interview is happening. But Trent is just being very kind of, skeptical and cynical about everything, as is, I'm sure, is his way as a journalist.
And he's down there sitting in amongst the kids. Like,
I love when he's on the...
Sir.
Before they get to the school, when he sees the play, when he first walks onto the field, and he's like, "Oh, is this your play?" And Ted gives Nate full credit, which is also, like, it's a small, like, quick little minute in the show, but it tells you so much about who Ted is, right? This is his first big interview with, like, a local, reputable paper, and he's just being like, no, this isn't my play, and tells, it's Nate. And the bit is like, oh, it's a kit man or whatever, but it's what Nate's doing when he points to him.
Somebody brought their dog out here. They found it at their poo. Nate, there's company. Not now. Don't do this now, buddy.
And they're talking about, like, what a good kid Nate is, and he asks Beard, and Beard, like, nods, and Ted is like, there's your headline, man nods.
I don't know why, but headline gags in TV shows are, like, some of my favorite. They don't work as well in print, but when you watch something and they give the inflection, that's where the joke is. And
yeah.
Have you watched Hot Fuzz with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost?
I have. I haven't seen it in years, but I've seen it like 2 or 3 times.
Do you remember that really awful reporter who's super bad at his job, and he winds up getting murdered because he's bad at his job? And at one point, they go to see Romeo and Juliet, and the reporter wants to make the headline, "Local Cop Applauds Teen Suicide." That shit got me so bad the first time I saw it.
I need to rewatch that. That's really, really good. No, I didn't remember that. That's really funny. So then they go to him and Trent. They go to the school with Roy. What do you think of Roy and his niece Phoebe?
I love this. And I'm going to tell you why. What you need to do is treat kids like they're people. And so many adults, like, just don't remember how to do that if they don't have kids that they're around often themselves. And, like, if it can be really awkward if you're not used to being around kids to know how to behave and how to act. And, obviously some parents are going to have an issue with him swearing. But the thing is, like, kids have heard it all. It's, in my opinion, if you're trying to, like, keep swearing away from your kids, you lost already. I'm sorry. They live in the world. It's too late. I volunteered with kids in California at this summer camp and never had worked with kids before and felt really weird. And I was just like, I'm just going to treat them like they're my friends, I guess. And it was the first night I had met them. We had this, like, big sort of meet and greet kind of thing. And they introduced me to the group because the kids were there already. I was coming into it late. And
that could always be awkward
with
children.
Yeah. And I was sort of like, I don't know how to establish anything here. And we had this whole thing, and I just tried to be chill with them and talk to them. And they left, and the head counselor was like, that was they love you. Did you see that? And I was like, wait. That was them loving me? And he's like, did they pick on you? No. So yeah, they love you. Like, it was a weird moment of me thinking that if kids like you, it's going to look a certain way, but that's only for, like, a particular age group that I was imagining, And the way kids, like, show that they like you is they just are honest with you and talk to you also like you're just a person. And the fact that he is himself with her, and he's like a sunnier version of himself, but he's still himself. I think kids pick up on that and they respect it,
Just a notch sunnier.
Just a tiny bit. And
just for her, because he loves her so much, he puts, like, a little extra effort into it.
So he, like, and I love that he first Ted gets introduced as Ed.
That's fantastic.
There's no applause.
It's not addressed. There's no applause. Mm-hmm. The misspeak is never acknowledged. It just happens.
One of the kids calls him wanker. Which Trent smirks about a little bit because he is not above that.
Now, what you were saying before with Trent sitting with the class with the little kids, and he's like,
and they come up to like his shoulder barely. Ted says, "I know someone else who's real excited to meet all of you. If you'll please help me welcome the captain of your AFC Richmond squad, Roy." What is his name? Kent. And he comes in, doesn't know what to say, and is basically like, "How about we just go outside and do a proper fuck around?" Is that what he says?
Yeah. Fuck about, I think. I think it's a fuck about.
That's it.
But he also says, I never really thought school was important. I just thought it was like a waste of time, which is like not the message your principal wants you to deliver to the children.
With volunteering with a different group of kids, did say college is a waste of time and money, and you can just put it on your resume that you went and they'll never know. And I may have said that in front of a superior who was not happy with me, but I stand by it. I said the right thing then, and I saying the right thing now.
I really gotta try that. I have never lied about that on a resume. I
Go
just
for
fucking do it.
Nobody checks. They just don't. I guarantee you, if there's ever anyone who checks, it's like 1 out of 500 people. And it's for a really high level job.
Yeah, like for the kind of jobs I'd be going for. Mm-hmm. My luck, they'd probably fucking check, though.
So what?
I'll make a...
So what? If they do, so what?
Oh,
nothing.
Then I just don't get a job.
Exactly.
What are they going to do? Call and tell my mom?
Exactly. They're not going to call around to other places and be like, if this girl applies to you, she's lying about her. They're not doing that. They're just going to be like, oh, well, and toss it. And that's it. Nothing lost, nothing gained. True. It's fine.
That is true.
That's always my thing with like, I should do this daring thing. And then I immediately go, if it went wrong, then what? And sometimes nothing. then it goes wrong. And that's literally it. That's the answer. It doesn't work. And then you just have to stop and go, wait, why am I so scared then? And sometimes that's totally valid. I'm not saying it's not, but it's worth following it to the end and finding out what you're so afraid of.
That is actually really, really good advice. Is we're following it to the end to see what you are really afraid of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the kids go outside and he starts, first he's talking to Ted for a minute about the fact that he's only here because his niece is here. And Ted has him go off and start like tossing the ball at kids and do a header, and Ted runs in and does a header himself.
He's so cute. Roy is like, okay, it's pretty good.
This
and then
him. Go ahead.
When Ted goes to hit the ball to Phoebe and she catches it.
Yep.
And then she kicks it right in his
kicks it into his face at a velocity that this girl is going to be a pro for sure. And it breaks his nose. I don't know if it's broken, but it's bleeding in a broken way.
But it's definitely bleeding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that she catches it too because like he tossed that shit too low for her to be able to head it. There was no way. Catching was the only option. So that's kind of on you, basically. Ted. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, she's like, you didn't even do it right. So I'm just gonna kick it back at you.
He's signing a ball for a kid and gets blood on it. Don't use this to clone me. Nice meeting you.
And this is when Roy comes over and yells at Ted about like his mind games and everything. Mm-hmm. And he's talking about the book, and Trent, explains what the book is about. It's like what do you say? Something like that.
It's a story of a young girl's struggle with the burden of leadership as she journeys through space. I had it right in front of me as you were saying that.
And doesn't Roy just like listen to him and just be like, "Fuck," and then just tells like I think he says something to Trent like, "You're a giant asshole," or "You're a giant prick," or "I've always hated you," or something like really rude.
He says here, "Am I supposed to be the little girl?"
Ted says, "I would like you to be.
Right. None of this matters because I'm just doing what everyone in this town is doing and counting down the days until you're gone. Trent, you're a colossal prick. You always have been. And then he goes with Phoebe and like holds her hand and runs out of there with her, and it's delightful. I wish that he had skipped, but
so I think they go to dinner next, and we see that they go to the restaurant of the driver that picked him up at the airport, Ollie. Mm-hmm. And it's his family's restaurant.
Yeah. It's Indian food, which Trent leans over and smashes their papadum in half and says that that's like a tradition. And
yeah,
I'm really curious about it because I love papadum. I don't love papadum so much as I love like the little sauces you dunk it in, but I never knew that was a thing, so I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah. I you know where I stand. So I haven't ever.
Yeah, Rashawn does not like Indian food because she's been traumatized by living above one as a kid.
There's something in some spice or something that just like, I can't take it. But I hear it's delicious, and I actually like spicy food, even though at my big age I probably shouldn't be eating it anymore. I bet I would think it was delicious.
It's
if
super
I could
good.
just get past that smell. They order the food, and Ted says, like, cook like you're cooking for family.
That was such a mistake.
Which is going to be entirely too spicy. And Trent says something like, I imagine it's hard to find good Indian food in Kansas. And Ted is like, oh, I don't know. I've never had it before.
And I love it, like, in front of Trent, this guy is like, I invite every person who's ever been in my car to come here, but like nobody's done it. And introduces the two of them to each other and says, now you've just met a cool person. And every single one of these interactions, you see Trent just kind of look at him like he's really trying to tell, are you full of shit? I don't think so, but there's no way.
Yeah, like you cannot be for real.
Yeah.
So if I like watch closely enough, I'll catch a crack, right? Mm-hmm. But by the end of the day, there's no crack, and it's a funny thing too. Like I'll say this much about the series as a whole and what the experience was watching it when it was like happening. Okay. I wasn't watching season 1 as it happened. I was late to season 1. Okay. But I was watching season 2 in real time. And a lot of the talk around the show was actually really kind of similar, where there was this feeling of like, can this show be this good? Mm-hmm. You know? Mm-hmm. And not just good like quality, but also like in the wholesomeness of it, and like whatever the overall story it was trying to tell, and would it start to wear thin and become sort of like almost like a parody of itself, or you know what I mean, like you know. And so a lot of people were like watching. Do y'all hear that?
Yep, sure do. She has thoughts on Ted Lasso. You better bring her on.
Steven must be giving Pitzel treats, and Ajita is such a fucking bully.
Oh no.
She won't leave Pitzel alone to enjoy her own treats. It's not even that Ajita wants the treats. She just wants to be where the action is. So like she's all over, she's in the way, she's trying to play, Bibbles is trying to eat it. So Steve has to like separate them for like 2 minutes.
This makes me think of like Owen, and he's just trying to read a comic on his iPad, and I'm just like jumping to bed and, what are you doing? What are you reading? Who's that? Oh yeah? Where does he come from? What is he doing? Why would he do that? You gonna explain
that guy? Is he with those other
My
guys?
favorite, though, is, like, sometimes Owen came home with a long box for comics that had all of these X-Men on the outside. And I'm looking, and I'm like, who's that? And he's explaining who they are. And the fucking answers that I'm getting, Rashawn, are more and more insane. Like, comics, it's just, like, One Piece, really, is what I'm realizing. But, like, at one point, I'm like, who is this guy who looks like a dog? And he's like, oh, that's Wolfman. That's the reporter from Spider-Man's son who goes to the moon and touches a moon rock that makes him into a wolf. And I'm like, Of course. J. Jonah Jameson's son, who went to the moon.
I'm so embarrassed. I even had to ask.
Anyway, all right. So Trent, this moment with Trent where you were I don't know if you had finished your thought, but talking about people worrying about the show being able to sustain goodness.
Yeah, and it was a sort of almost like a lot of the audience were like little mini Trent Crims, like just like, is this show for real? Like what what's behind, what's happening? Is there like going to be some sort of snarky, reveal that makes us all feel foolish for thinking it was this one show and it turned, you know what I mean? Like, and so watching this episode with Trent, it really made me feel like, oh yeah, I remember like a lot of people were watching this show like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting to me because we talked recently, and I don't remember what we were covering, but we talked about how the 90s really went through a comedy being mean, and everything was about mocking people, and like it just being the whole bit was making fun of people and making them feel small, and how it feels like as things get worse in the world, we pull back from that because we just can't, it's not funny anymore. We need something warmer to find funny because everything feels too cold and awful. And it's funny that nobody ever seemed to ask whether being mean was sustainable, but being like
it's true.
Kind, all of a sudden everybody's like, well, how long can we really keep this up? Like, what about if that wasn't a problem, guys?
Yeah.
Like, because people are
really,
still
really
going to be people. It's not like having an upbeat attitude about things means folks don't have personalities or flaws or do dumb shit or misjudge things, which is the plot. It just means that we're not gleeful about them fucking up.
Right. That's the thing right there. Like, not being gleeful, and the enjoyment is not based in the suffering of others, The enjoyment can come from someplace else. Yeah. And I think you're right, too, this sort of shift in what we think of as oh my God,
the cat in the background. Everybody who's listening, I'm sorry, because this is probably very boring to hear us get excited about something that you can't see, but this cat is going nuts.
But yeah, this idea that like comedy can come from a place that is not rooted in just other people's despair, other people's humiliation, other people's, pain and suffering, right? And we're starting to see more sitcom, well, people even call them sitcoms anymore, more like, comedy television programs.
Yeah.
That are, trying to be a little bit different. I think somebody in the chat is like listing, I'm trying not to like pay too much attention, but
Jamie said Schitt's Creek, Parks and Rec, The Good Place, and Ted Lasso are the ones that Jamie was mentioning. And you haven't done Schitt's Creek. You haven't watched that, have you?
I have not.
Recommend. It's a very different vibe, but it's still kind in its way. It doesn't feel like it's going to be at first. It takes its time. It grows into it in a way that's very natural.
I've watched the first 2 episodes several times and never just, and how there's a meme that was going around too that was something like, you might keep recommending a show to me, but I have to consult my neurodivergent brain and make sure that we're ready for this something or whatever. And I feel like that's what's happening with me. It's not the show. I just haven't tried it at the right time.
I completely get that. And it didn't grab me at first either, but neither did The Good Place. I watched the first half of season 1 of The Good Place and was kind of like, I guess. I don't know.
That's right, because when we were all going crazy for it, you were just like,
yeah.
Okay, y'all. I'm going to let y'all
really
have that.
Buy what's-her-face in this role. And I love the show, but honestly, I stand by that. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But the fact that he is here, it does feel like it's sort of meant to be like the audience getting acknowledged. Like the show is going to be, I'm going to put a character in here who isn't actually they don't have skin in the game, so to speak. They're just observing and they are equally unsure. And the way that eventually the article comes out and he's like, look, this guy may suck, but also I like him, so who cares? Yeah. And that does feel sort of like where you come out as a viewer, you know?
I think the way that Trent finishes the article, he says something like, it's most likely that the team is going to suffer and will probably get relegated, sorry.
I was about to be like, regulated. Wait, what did he say?
Because, you know, this guy doesn't really know what he's doing. Mm-hmm. But when he fails, I won't gloat. Mm-hmm. That was like the thing. It's like, I'm not going to enjoy his failure.
Yeah.
You know, it's not that I spent the day with him and now I think, oh, he's going to save the team and we're going to win the cup. No. You know, that's probably not going to happen. But I'm not going to revel in his failure.
Yeah.
And I just like, whew. Rebecca is pissed.
She's so mad. And you know what I think? I think she's pissed because she knows exactly what he means. I think she's pissed because she is like trying to cling to wanting his failure because of these external factors. And a part of her knows it's not going to feel good. And she doesn't want to face that it won't feel good. I think she's still so bent on her original plan that thinking about how it would actually go, it's just too hard for her to face it right now, you know? Which I think a lot of us could probably relate to. It's hard to change plans, man, once you get committed to a plan and then you have to...
Especially when it's a plan born of what feels like righteousness, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, I have a right to be trying to inflict this pain on Rupert. Mm-hmm. You know, it's not like that's not she hates Ted and she wants bad things to happen to Ted because he's terrible.
No.
Ted is just like an instrument in this thing she's trying to enact against her ex-husband. Mm-hmm. And she's just really tunnel vision. Mm-hmm. You know, like you said, when you get a plan, you know, when you hatch a plan.
And if ever there was a woman who hatches a plan and follows that shit through, you could tell it's her. You know, this is like the way that she is living her life, and it makes sense that she would just be full speed ahead. My first personal feelings about this guy don't factor in. They can't factor in. I can't let that be anything.
Yep. It would almost be like a sign of weakness for her if she, you know, let her good feelings about Ted get in the way of what her ex-husband deserves, you know, and she thinks he deserves. And while Higgins is reading this to fucking Rebecca, which I love that he pauses and is like, I just want to remind you that I didn't write this shit.
I love that.
I'm just reading it. There's Trent's, you know, they're reading the article. Trent is like a voiceover, and that's when we see Roy walking into the club.
Yep. And Roy just gets right up in his face over this. It's so, like, first we have him reading the book.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. He's reading it to Phoebe.
Right before that, I just want to mention the food being, like, way too hot, and Trent can't eat it. And Ted says, give me yours then. Just give me yours. And the way that Ted phrases it is that we can't say it's too hot or it'll embarrass his father, which I thought was interesting because I wouldn't think that about the chef. Like, saying like, okay, this is way too spicy. I'm so sorry. I wouldn't think that would embarrass him. I would be embarrassed by it, you know?
Does he say it would embarrass the chef?
I feel like that's what he says.
I know. I thought he said something like it would offend him or something.
I'm going to back up and see what he says here. Oh my God.
Excuse me.
I love this moment of both of them just being like, oh my God.
One moment Ted is like, is my tongue still in my mouth?
Yes.
And then Ollie comes over and dumps more food.
We know how you Americans love to eat. Oh my God.
But I took that moment as just being like it would be rude after we've told him, you know, make it the way you make it for your family. And now we have it and we're like, no.
Yeah.
Personally, I mean, I'm not as good as Ted. I would have had to stop eating.
Yeah.
That is just how that goes.
There's a point where it's not really worth it. Like,
you know.
no, come on now. We got to put a decent dent in this. Otherwise, we're going to embarrass Ollie in front of his family.
Oh, embarrass Ollie in front of his family, not embarrass the chef.
Yeah.
So that does look a little bit, because now Ollie's all proud and like, you know, he's been bragging to his father-in-law that, you know, they came to the restaurant because I invited them and they said the food's great. Also, it's a big deal being a Premier League coach. So it's like low-key a celebrity, even though he's not like popular.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah.
That's a good point. I didn't really put that spin on it, but he is like a big name, and being able to say that he came and really liked the food would be a big deal. At this point, Trent bows out and is just like, all right, well, I have shit to write. And he doesn't leave with like a smile. So there's a real sense of, I still don't know what he's going to make of this situation.
Yeah.
But that is when we go to Roy reading the story to his niece. It has to be me. Can't be anybody else. He puts the book down and just says, fuck! And she says, that's a bad word, Uncle Roy. And he says, mind your own business, Phoebe. And just gets up and leaves. And then he like ducks back and is like, be good. And kisses her on the head. But then he just leaves again. I love the
He's
mind
also
your own
wearing
business,
super fun
Phoebe.
socks.
Is he? I didn't even notice. What are his socks?
He's wearing fun socks. I don't know, like bright blue.
They're
and
like
have
turquoise.
little like, yeah, like, I don't know, cartoonish. Something's happening on there.
I'm going to say that she gave those to him, and he's wearing them because he knew we would see her today.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, that's what it is. Of course it is.
So this is
he
when he goes
out.
into the club. And
Isaac is all happy to see him.
I swear to everything about this whole moment is so he says something about how I don't know who I headbutted. I'm really sorry, but I don't see well at night anymore.
After he headbutts Colin, he goes and he starts yelling at the three people that are sitting on the couch, and it's Jamie, Keely, and some like random person. And then he's like, I don't know which one of you I'm yelling at or something, because I don't see really well at night anymore.
I felt so attacked. I didn't realize how bad my night vision was until I moved down here and I was backing the car out of somebody's driveway. I was backing Owen's car. It made it so much worse. Out of his friend's driveway, and didn't see a bush, and like backed right onto the bush. And I could tell Owen was so flipped out. And that was not the only time. I'm not familiar with the roads around here. And I went the wrong way on a one-way. Panicked. Tried to get off onto the shoulder to turn around. Misjudged in the dark that it was not a shoulder, it was a ditch. The car slid down into the mud and would not leave. And I had to call Owen at work to come and help me get the car out. And eventually some good Samaritan with a fucking chain and a tow truck helped us out. But I straight up trapped the car in a ditch facing the wrong direction on a one-way highway that had like a 60 mile per hour speed limit. It was so embarrassing. It was I had probably been living here all of like 6 months when that happened. Maybe. It was like right in the beginning of our relationship, and just that period where you're still like, I don't want to look like a fucking idiot. Now this happens, and I'm like, you already know I'm a fucking idiot. It's too late. It's done. But you're still trying to like keep that at a minimum at that point, you know?
This wasn't supposed to happen for another 8 months.
Exactly. Minimum. And he takes that big swig of the vodka, vanilla vodka. You are such a child. And Jamie doesn't even push back on that. He looks genuinely ashamed. In a way that I wasn't expecting, because he's always taking so much pride in being the younger one, that I wasn't really sure if that would get to him. And it's so weird because, like, it's such a thing that men aren't supposed to drink booze that's got flavors in it.
No, it tastes good. No, it's supposed to taste awful and burn and put hair on your chest.
Right.
And that's like that's a man's drink.
So there was a little part of me that was like, calling him a child because he likes vanilla vodka feels wrong. Like, that's the kind of thing that I am pushing back on these days, because it's just sort of, men aren't supposed to enjoy anything, you know? But also, I don't like Jamie, and he's like full of shit all the time. So I can't get mad about it.
You want to allow it in this context.
It's really...
I love to end in... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, just in the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson, the universe, women are only allowed to eat sweet foods, and men are only allowed to eat, like, spicy curry. And that's, like, a thing that they're divided by gender as to what they're allowed to eat. Which sounds ridiculous, but that's kind of the way we approach everything.
We do that.
You know? Yeah. If men have a sweet tooth, it's seen as like a weakness versus a man who likes steak and cheese. Mm-hmm. It's just weird. And so when you break it down and you're like, well, what if they were only allowed to eat these things? All of a sudden you're like, that's ridiculous. But like, that's kind of what we're saying, though.
Yeah, we're not that far. Yeah, we're not that far removed from it when you think of it.
Yeah.
I love, too, that Roy looks like Keeley did in the face. We started the episode with this moment, and it's just like Keeley. Mm-hmm. It's just like, Roy. And Jamie is looking at them both like, I don't care for any of this.
What's going on here? It's the adults. The adults are talking, baby. Don't worry. Sit there and have your vanilla vodka. Yeah, and as this is, again, there's like, his style is subtle. It never hits you over the head. And it says it never hits you over the head as he headbutts him, which I was like, well done. Okay, I see what you're doing here.
There's a bit where it's like, you know, Ted is out in the community, you know, for good or for bad, and you see Ted walking around. This is when you see him, like, scurrying to his door because he ate all that food. But he walks by the guys at the bar, and it's Paul, Jeremy, and Baz outside, and he's like, you know, even the fellas, and they're all like, wanker, wanker.
One of them goes, ah! Like he's gonna, like, trying to scare him? I was like, what are you doing?
And then I think it's Paul, and it's like, hey. And after Ted leaves, they yell, they're like, every fucking time. Like, they're trying to be, like, assholes, and the one friend is like, hey, how you doing? And I don't want to read anything into it, but I love that what they did with those three characters, and I don't know if I mentioned this in the first one or not, but I really love that they made, I think it's Paul as the black guy, and he's huge. Mm-hmm. You know, he's a big dude, and he's the only black guy in this little trio, and he is the one they make be just like, hey, how you doing? Like, you know, like, just instead of, like, angry, you know what I mean? It just, It was just, I really just appreciated the show did not lean into something that was
he's so scary
there, that would have been so easy for them to do that.
Yeah.
And I just really appreciated that they were like, yeah, no, we're not doing that.
He's a cinnamon roll.
My God.
I'm going to have this be the spot where we take a little break. We're going to get into talking about the second of these two episodes, but it's becoming quite clear to me that we can no longer do 2 episodes per podcast because we are an hour and 20 minutes into this recording and we have only talked about one of them. So we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. Okay, now we are back. So you were asking why I texted you, and it was pure because she is so mad at the fact that Ted got this good article, and I really wanted to see if there was any like further fallout from that. And the next episode doesn't really deal with it at all. I thought for sure it would be talked about amongst everybody because this is a pretty big. He was particularly adversarial. Mm-hmm. So the fact that he wrote something positive, I expected there to be more that comes of it. And maybe there will be eventually, but this next episode doesn't focus on it at all almost. The focus is almost entirely on the gala that she's throwing and the relationship between Jamie and Roy.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but I was just like wanting some sort of closure to that, or not even necessarily closure, but just like reaction, you know? Mm-hmm. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I just also want to watch this next episode because I wanted to watch it. So the relationship between the two of them just keeps getting worse in this scenario. Honestly, they are at each other's throats, and at one point straight up want to brawl.
Yeah, it's about to be a fight in the locker room.
Yeah.
And then we find out Ted's rule about Fight Club and
No Fight Club.
The way Beard is so... I love everybody on the show. Beard is so phenomenal. He doesn't have a lot of lines, but he delivers every time they need him to. And the way he screams, "No Fight Club!"
And it doesn't last. Like, they stop, and then Jamie has to push it by calling Roy Granddad.
Yeah.
And Roy launches himself at Jamie, and then it cuts. So I'm assuming they got into it, but we don't actually see it.
It cuts to the credits, and then I think we just come back to an entirely different scene.
Yeah.
And, this is what we were talking about at the beginning of the recording, where this is the halftime when this big fight happens. They went back out and played.
And the whole thing with this is, first half of it is really everybody, like, deciding what they're going to wear and getting, like, prepared for this. And Ted is talking to Rebecca in her office about it. She's going through gowns and has one that she loves but feels is too young for her, which Rupert digs in on later in a way that it's like she mentions, he knows me so well. He knows exactly what to say. And that, for me, is the kind of thing that's, like, the cruelest part of being in a relationship and it ending is when somebody weaponizes the shit that they know about you, that you're particular. Like, it's one thing if they're just straight up correct about toxic shit you did. It's another thing to know you have a self-consciousness about something and they just pick at it to fuck with you. Like, that's not, you know? But this is when they find out that the musical actually booked isn't coming. Yeah. And I was so glad that Ted figures it out, because I was like, there's no way that man did not call him and tell him not to come. He just says, oh, I can call him up. I'm like, I bet you fucking can. Yeah, and thankfully Ted comes around a little bit later.
Yeah, initially like, Ted is just like, oh, that'd be great. Like, let me go ask her. He ends up not even bringing it up to Rebecca. You know, not his suspicion, not Rupert's offer. I love, there's another... I know we have to, like, keep it moving, but when they are on the field at the beginning of the episode and we find out that the gala is happening because she yells out to Beard about his entrees, you can't have both. And that's when Ted finds out that Beard has a date. So he decides to ask Nathan if he would come with him. Yeah. And it just leads to this, I'm going to bring Nate the Great as my date. And for obvious reasons, we like to sit at table 8. And so, you guys.
I love that he keeps trying to be like, because I'm trying, and she's just like, I said yes already. She's just like, so, he keeps trying to do things, and she's just like, no, I'm not doing this.
He wants to tell his pajamas, the prom story, when she's going through her dresses, and she's just like, yeah, no, I don't have time for this story right now.
I predict that we will hear that story as an audience. I just feel like we will.
Oh my God.
And he winds up, like, when he meets Nate, his suit is so too big for him.
His little old man suit. He's swimming in it.
Owens has a suit like this. That's like, it's tailored in a way that the 90s, like, you know what suits were in the 90s.
I remember.
And they're trying to bring it back, apparently, with that Robert Pattinson fucking...
Oh my God, that? He looked like did he fuck with the guy from Talking Heads, whose name I know but can't remember right now. Oh my God, I can't think of his name. But you all know what I'm talking about. It just made
me think of, like,
David Byrne. Thank you, Jamie. Oh, that's a whole other thing.
Boyz II Men had that, like, white, oversized, double-breasted
You would have,
shit.
Like, a suit jacket that came down to your knees, like a Tom and Jerry fucking zoot suit. Remember?
I swear to God. And the shoulder pads that, like, what are you...
Save it for our episode. Nope. 90s episode. Yeah. Save it for that.
90s fashion. What we have is her wearing the dress that she felt was too young for her, looking amazing.
The red carpet with Keely being, like, in like so supportive when Rebecca is feeling so vulnerable. Rebecca wants to run. She wants to run by the cameras and get in as soon as she can. And Keely is there for her in such a phenomenal, supportive way. And then just yells, she's fucking fit. And it makes Rebecca laugh. And she gets these great pictures. And it's just so good. It's so good.
She tells her about put one foot in front of the other and then turn this way and make your hand like a claw. And I was just like, yeah, that is the fucking pose.
It is.
The one foot in front of the other every time. And fucking Jamie wore a suit jacket without a shirt under it because he's a ponce.
And it fucking looks good, though, even though I can't stand him.
No, ma'am. I think he did not. That was some bullshit. Look.
Okay, I'm sorry.
He looked good for like a Calvin Klein ad. He did not look good for going to this event for children's charity. Like, sir,
he's building his brand.
If he was going to, I like the VH1 Music Awards. Fine.
How cute was Sam? Thank you for taking my picture. What is your name?
Oh,
what are your guys' names? You're Dave. You're Joe.
You're Jerry. Yeah. He's
very,
delightful.
very cute. Very cute.
She's still anxious because they haven't found a replacement musical act. So this is all going, and she's like mentioned to Ted already. In the past, it was always her husband that did the public-facing stuff, and she did like all of the planning, but people loved him, and he was the one who managed to get all of the money.
Yeah.
So she's in the middle of her big opening speech, and he walks in with this grandstanding, stealing the moment completely.
It's so gross. And, like, there's a line towards the end of the episode where Ted tells Rebecca, you probably think you're the only one who can see who he really is, right? Mm-hmm. And I get that, like, this guy is so charming and charismatic and wealthy and whatever else. He clearly has everybody fooled. But, like, when I watched it, I kept thinking, how are these people fooled? How are they fooled by this? But
I don't even think it's necessarily on an individual level. I just think the opinion of the public at large is buffered by not being there to see what he does and just hearing about it or getting snippets. And it sounds great in once it's blown up.
Right.
Because they're not getting the details. I think a lot of people that are closer to him probably do know he's full of shit.
I hope so. Ooh, Johnny Depp cough in the chat.
Ugh. Ugh.
Don't
even get me started.
That is it.
Yeah.
That is it. I shouldn't be so surprised.
So, he steals this moment. She finally asks him to just be the one who does the auction. And she asks him after he applauds her for wearing something so youthful. I'm so like
good for you
for putting yourself out there again, like, looking like
that. And Ted's face, like Ted is like, what?
Yeah.
And she has to just have this veneer of like, oh, what you said is completely reasonable and okay, and I have to respond, rationally. I can't be hysterical or offended. I have to act, like.
What I love about this is that it's almost like you're watching what people are wondering if Ted is like. And he's not, but like everybody is so used to a guy doing this passive-aggressive cutting thing that when Ted's coming out here being genuine, everybody has to take a second to readjust because they're like, wait, are you just being like this type of dude?
Yeah.
She, like, I think not only lets him take the stage for being the auctioneer because he does bring in more money, but also she is about to lose it and she knows it. So she needs to get the fuck out of there. This is when he offers to like call up the guy. Ted goes outside and finds her and she's crying. And they have this moment where she just talks about how he knows how to get to me. And it's just, I remember he would tell me what to eat and what to wear, and I would listen to him. And this one got to me a lot, especially like a lot of the stuff that's been coming out recently about the toxicity in relationships, not necessarily being abuse that is like physical, But this sort of thing, Chris Hardwick is the one that comes to mind, who had like several of his ex-girlfriends came out and talked about how like he shamed them for their weight and like made them weigh in and just policed their food and what they wore and like everything about their image. And that is something that it's really hard to get across to people in a larger sense, how damaging that is if they aren't watching the moments specifically. When you just try and say he would do this and that, it sounds so impersonal and general that you can be like, yeah, that's terrible. But when you stop and really think about this moment and him being like, you don't want to drink too much, just these little like very patronizing.
Yep.
You know?
Like just sort of
just
chiseling away at whatever self-esteem she had. Right? And making her feel small. Ultimately, it's about making her feel small. And which, you know, when you think about why she's so like obsessive about hurting Rupert and taking the team from him and causing him humiliation and all that, you know, it's coming from that place. And it's almost like Rebecca has decided that if she can accomplish that, then she will get back herself. Like whatever she lost in the marriage, right? Like this is how she has decided. This is the path back to who I was before he like ruined me or whatever, you know? And we've seen her for, this is the 4th episode. We've seen Rebecca pretty much strong, you know, warrior pose the whole time. And it's like 10 minutes in the same room with Rupert. And this is what she's reduced to. It's like takes him no time to get her to this point.
And it just like emphasizes why she's as like hard-shelled as she seems to be. Because she was around this and she had to protect herself. And she's attempting to continue to protect herself by keeping this like attitude up. And I'm not saying it's not real, but it's created because I think of what she was put through. And the thing about this is people like go through this as well when they have been treated a certain way by parents or siblings and they go home. They will have come such a long way and then they're in the room with their parents again and they're 11.
Yep.
And it's like everything that you have grown into goes out the window and it's just, you know, and you sit there going, how am I back here again?
Yep.
And I just felt for her so bad in that moment. They really get across so much in these like little scenes between the two of them. And eventually he donates £1 million because he has to just own the night. Yeah. It has to be all about him. And the headline has to be about him.
And he becomes the reason she meets her goal and like exceeds her goal. Right. You know? There's a bit earlier, and I just only want to mention it because we talked about Higgins earlier, and the way she talks to him and how kind of like it takes him a second when she's doing the tables, the seatings, and she's like, we're going to call that table 4 the boring table. And he's like, wait, but I'm sitting there.
Oh, my God. Yeah, babe. Yes, sweetie. I'm so sorry, but yes, that's correct. That's where you're seated.
And we have Roy, Jamie, Keely, and Ted and Nate all at one table because Ted has parent trapped them, and he wants them to. He wants Roy and Jamie to hash it out.
I really do love that, though.
Yeah, we get the scene that you talked about earlier where Roy is trying to sort of be the grown-up, and he's just like, all right, you know what?
Yeah.
I had this situation when I was younger on the team that won. There was this old fuck. I couldn't stand him. But what we had to do was, like, get an understanding. And that's when Roy is, like, telling him, like, you know, sometimes I can be a dick. You know, and wants Jamie to own up to his bit. And he, like, says, I don't want to. But then he agrees that, you know, Roy is, like, a little bit right. And it feels like... It feels like, oh, okay, maybe some progress is being made between these two.
The thing between the two of them, I really appreciate Ted just being like, Roy, what were you like? Because I want more people to stop and ask themselves that question. Mm-hmm. It is insane to me how much people forget what it was like to be young and what they were like when they were young. And people will act like they were away. And I would bet you money anybody who knew you would have some things to say about your little interpretation of yourself.
Yeah.
But everybody has, like, applies their present logic to their past self as if they've always known everything that they know now. And that's simply not how you operated. And frankly, if you can look back at yourself and say that you made a lot of great decisions and you don't regret anything, you aren't probably a good person because you're not growing and you're not becoming better.
Yeah.
If you think who you were when you were 20 is as good as who you are now, go get therapy. That's not a good thing.
I love that there's, like, very little resistance either. Ted has to say it, right? What would you like? But Roy immediately is like, I was an arrogant, cocky little fucking prick. You know, like, immediate sort of ownership of that.
Yep.
And it's just another fantastic moment for our Roy Kent, who I just adore. The thing with Nate, like, ordering, like, a martini, being all sexy in his new suit, because Ted takes him to get, like, a suit that fits.
Yep.
He takes, like, one sip and then just spits it all out. And then for some reason...
He holds it long enough to make it look good for when she turns away because he's flirting with the bartender. Spits it back, puts it down, and somebody swoops up and goes, thanks, and runs off with it before he can say anything.
And it has nothing to do with anything. We never see that guy again, but there's a weird moment when Rupert comes in. He just leans over the table and takes some guy's champagne, like, right off the table, which maybe he was already drinking out of that.
I swear. That happens so much in movies, and I'm always just like, is that a thing people do? Because I would put my hand over it and be like, I'm sorry.
This
is mine.
And I'm pretty sure the camera pans to Ted and Ted sees him do that, and Ted, like, makes a face like, what? Who does that?
The thing with Nate, what I keep thinking of is when they talk about the difference between a schlemiel and a schlemazel. And the schlemiel is the one who spills the sloop, and the schlemazel is the one who has it spilled on him. And Nate is the schlemazel. He is not the spiller. He is the one that gets spilled on. It's always shit that's sort of, like, out of his hands that goes wrong, you know? And he's just, like, around for it and gets the brunt of it because he's just unlucky, you know?
He tries to tell that fucking joke and just mangles it. He forgets to say birthday suit, and he's like, my first suit was when I was a naked baby. And everybody is like, what the fuck?
I knew what he was saying, and I still laughed, but it was the creepiest possible phrasing, sir. Oh my God.
Jamie said Rupert takes a drink right out of that guy's hand at the table. I thought he just took it off the table.
I thought it was on the table, yeah.
But
he may have had his hand on it on the table.
So the auction.
First, we have Jamie. He wants Keely to place wagers on... Wagers? Bids. Bids is the word.
Bids. They have convinced him that this old lady is going to bid on him and win, and then he's going to have to give her a little finger action. He doesn't have to go all the way. Jamie with the no shirt, he drops soup on his chest.
This is the thing. People talk about, like, oh, I don't want to wear bras or anything anymore after the pandemic. And I am but guys, today I was just making a cup of tea in the morning, and I just had a nightgown on with no bra. It's been hot, so I was a little sweaty, and I had this tin of tea that was new I was going to try. I didn't know it was loose leaf, and I pulled that lid off a little too hard. And I just flung loose leaf tea all over myself.
No.
And the crannies that shit got into, I basically had to shower, like, at the kitchen sink to get it off because it was just stuck to me. I was about to steep it in my sweat. But what I'm saying is, I am not a big fan of eating naked or doing kitchen thing or, you know, anything that's, like, involving food and nakedness. It's no good, man. It's just not.
No.
But he goes up there, and she doesn't want to bid on him because she says it's going to look pathetic, which I thought was weird because it's kind of tradition, I thought, for like, if a person who is in a relationship is going up to bid, that the person they're with is going to at least place a bid on them. I thought that was like part of a thing.
I have no idea. But, you know, it's funny because Rupert makes fun of Keely for bidding and then winning, you know, basically makes her look pathetic, you know. Why, what he says something like, when you could date him for free, but why not spend $25,000 or something, like, you know.
It's like, it's for charity, sir, first of all. So it's weird that you're going to mock her for giving the charity, because that should be a good thing. But right. Okay.
But that's just who and what he is.
Oh, and the reason that Jamie is worried is because this old lady comes over while he's icing his nipple and says that she wishes she was that ice cube. And
she means
when she says she's gonna like have the evening with him, he's like, it's not the whole evening, and she just says, we'll see. Oh, I love her.
Roy says anyone that bids, if she bids over $3,000, you have to spend the night with her. And he's like, oh my God, Keely, is that true? He's completely
falling for it. Oh my God.
100%. And Keely's like, no, you don't have to go all the way. Just give her a little finger action.
So Keely isn't interested in bidding on him until she's doing it for a favor. Mm-hmm. And then this woman, Bex, is in the back bidding on him, a young hot thing. Yeah. And all of a sudden, Keely's feeling away and starts getting very aggro and outbids this girl. But she goes to the bathroom, and this is when there's the thing with her and Rebecca.
Yeah.
Who tells her, I feel like you have the right to know she was his other +1.
Yeah. Rebecca is thanking Keely for her help out front at the red carpet. Mm-hmm. And then is feeling, like you said, like, I think you deserve to know.
Yeah.
And Keely's response, she just goes, cheeky little prick or something, she says, right? Where it's not apparent how upsetting this is.
Yeah.
You know, she doesn't like, oh my God, that fucking asshole, or, you know, it's not like that. Mm-hmm. But then she has a sip of Rebecca. Oh my God, the thing about the olives.
Yeah, no, we're not talking about that.
I'm sorry. Anyway, but that's what, and she starts talking about, I think she asked Rebecca if she's ever dated a footballer, and Rebecca, like, laughs, like, no. Yeah. And then apologizes for sounding judgy, and Keely goes, oh, it's okay, you are a bit judgy.
Appreciate it, right? Keely. She's like, look, you are what you are. It's okay. Why pretend to not be who you are?
Yeah, you don't have to, like, we're not going to sit here and pretend you're not who you are, but it's okay. Like, it's not like a deal breaker or whatever. That sort of, it's such an early stage in their, it's like budding friendship, you know? It's not even like a real friendship yet, you know? But that willingness to just sort of be that honest. And
Rebecca has a moment of, like, looking almost offended, but Keely continues on, and it's so clear she didn't mean it as an insult. She's just like, hey, whatever. And you see Rebecca's face, like, the offense, and then almost a sort of relief. Like, oh, I don't have to defend myself. Yeah. It's just a really nice moment, because there's no reason to not take it initially as just like, ouch. If you don't know the person who's saying it to you that well, you know?
Exactly. And considering that it's become clear that Rebecca has had a long relationship with somebody who says things under the guise of just being a straight shooter, but really the intention is to hurt you, right? Yep. So when someone tells a truth about Rebecca, but they don't mean it to hurt, it's like her first reaction is to, like, bristle, and then, like, you talk about the realization of, oh, but she's not like shooting at me when she says it, though.
Yeah. This is something that I think is really fascinating overall about the way that Ted Lasso interacts with the world, and how I want to incorporate this more into who I am, because I am super judgy. And that's just going to be a thing. Like, I'm never just going to get rid of being judgy. But I have to assume it's a much more pleasant place in his head than it is in my head. Because I think he's being a straight shooter, and he just happens to straight shoot things that he really feels, which tend to be positive because he focuses on the positive with a lot of people. And that's something that I would like to do. And it's like an exercise. You have to train yourself to do that. Learning to look at the dark side or just be nitpicky about things. That is also a learned behavior. You got that from somewhere and you have to unlearn it. And it's not going to just be like suddenly you transform overnight into,
right.
You know, I don't even want to say less judgy, but just like a person who looks at the world with more optimistic eyes. It's just something that I would like to work on.
Yeah.
Because my head can be so mean. And it's like mean to other people, but it's honestly mean to me. And my meanness to other people is more me being like, how come they're not as ashamed of themselves as I would be if I were them? Because I have this like ridiculous standard that doesn't matter to anybody that I want to live by for like reasons.
Right.
Or why.
Right.
And don't get me wrong, I wish the world had more shame in it than it does just about the right things, which
right.
it doesn't. It has shame around all the wrong things and no shame about the things it should. But reacting with judgment because you have an expectation you hold yourself to, and there's almost an envy that other people don't seem to have that for themselves. You know, that's like where I come from a lot, is just feeling like, how are you okay about this? Why can't I be okay about something like that? You know, I just really like even just the little moment of him saying, now you've each met a cool person. It's such a simple thing. And like, he doesn't know either of them, and maybe they're not cool. Maybe they're not. Right. It's just possible. But like, so
yeah.
Maybe, like, for now, you've made two people feel good who clearly both, like, people need to feel good. And it's not, you don't need to, like, weigh and measure every statement.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it just doesn't have to be like that. And it's just the kind of thing that I would stop and overthink. If somebody was like, do you think he's a cool guy? I'd be like, well, and I would fucking have to do a spreadsheet to determine, you know?
One time on Facebook, man, he shared this meme, and I don't know, like, that took some points off of the ledger when he did that.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's like, he doesn't know either of them well. So to a degree, he can be flip about it because he doesn't really know either of them.
But also that's the thing, like when you don't know people really well, you can make a decision. You can either think the worst of them or think the best of them based on a little bit of information you have. And if it turns out your assessment was wrong, then okay, that's something we deal with down the road. But in this moment, I'm going to choose to believe. You picked me up at the airport. You were super cool. You took me around to see the thing I wanted to see. Great. You invited me to this restaurant in Trek Creme. You know, yeah, you've been a bit of a pill, but we've been hanging out all day, and you seem like an alright guy. Pretty interesting. You're intelligent.
That's the thing for me,
you know,
is that, like, Trent, he has every reason to kind of be like, this guy's a sourpuss. But he doesn't go there with it. And he has, like, some reasons to not say that, if anything. Yeah. And and Trent knows that. So the fact that he introduced him as a cool person, despite the position he holds some power over him right now. And it could feel like brown nosing, but it doesn't.
And that's the thing too. I think that what Trent gets and what I got is that Ted appears to just respect the fact that Trent is just doing a job. That's all. You know, he's just doing a job. And instead of trying to, like, pretend to be something he's not, it's almost like Ted is like, this man knows this sport. He knows this town. He knows more about the sport than I do. He knows more about this place than I do. Why should I try to, like, pretend that I know more? He could find me out with 2 questions. So I'm just going to be who I am. I'm just going to admit what's on the table. You know, when he introduces Nate and says, you know, that guy probably knows more about this game than I ever will. You know, there's like sort of that humility there. So yeah, I mean, I don't
what he basically says about Ted in the article is like, Ted drops his ego out of everything.
Yep.
And there it is. My ego is enormous. I crumple under the weight of it. It'd be so cool if I could leave some of that out. Like, it'd be great. I would like it, I think. I think it'd be good for everybody. So, that's just going to be like something that I try and work on, is what I'm saying.
I hear ego death is where it's at.
You know, like, I mean, you could just say death, too, but...
Yeah, well, that's for me. I'm talking about for you.
Honestly, when we were talking about how I would imitate you, my first thought was, I want my coffee and I want my cigarettes and I want to die.
There it is.
And that was like me imitating you.
That's it. That's it. You nailed it. Nailed it.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
I'm going to make a postcard. Anyway. Yeah, I'm interested to see because, like, there can be drawbacks to approaching things the way that Ted does. And I'll be interested to see if we get to see some of those, like, some of the drawbacks in action. You know, I have to assume so far everybody's been very charmed by him. Even people who don't really like him, they can't help but kind of like him, and that's why they don't like him. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious whether or not there's going to be anybody that this just doesn't work on. I have to assume that the people it doesn't work on are going to be people who just don't value being genuine.
That's a really interesting point, because I would think, as much as I adore the show, as much as I adore everyone in the show, if I had to live or work in close proximity with a Ted Lasso, what would that really be like for me? And truth be told, guys, I don't know how long I could do it. Just knowing...
What if he brought you cookies?
They would have to be, like, the best cookies. And those shortbread biscuits...
Would.
Mm-mm. That's not cutting it for me. I'm sure... No.
Trying to think what's the thing that they only have in Philly? Tasty cakes.
Yeah, I need frosting.
Tasty cakes every day.
Maybe a filling. Maybe no dry ass shortbread cookies. But like, that's a really interesting point. Like, how do you, like, can you deal with that all day, every day? Does it wear down? I think
what has worked for him so far is that he isn't just talk. He's doing things as well. Mm-hmm. So I think for you, if, like, somebody just had this sort of upbeat attitude, no. But if they had this upbeat attitude and they also went to your boss and was like, you realize that you've given her an additional 5 jobs every week for the past 6 weeks, right? And he actually, like, put his money where his mouth is and stood up for you. Yeah. That would change the whole way that you see it. Because it's one thing to just be positive, and it's another thing to, like, be doing positive things.
I think that's a really, really good distinction. Very nice. I think
he tries to back it up, you know? He genuinely seems to be trying.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that Trent says, too, right? When he says that, you know, he's, for good or bad, he's in the community. He's out there trying to, like, do this thing. Yeah. So, Roy gets auctioned in a really harsh segue.
Wait, because we didn't finish the conversation between Keely and Rebecca, which is part of what leads to the thing with Roy's auction. Right. Basically, Keely's talking about dating footballers and how much older she is than Jamie, and says that they're fun. And Rebecca is like, yeah, but what about accountability? Yeah. And Keely says, what do you mean? And she says, I was with a man for, like, years, and he never took accountability for a single day in any of those years. Mm-hmm. And that, combined with this other +1, she comes back to her seat, and this girl is literally sitting in her seat.
She is very chill about it. She's so nice. Hey, how are you doing? Can I have a minute with this one right here? Again, like, not going to make a scene, even though I'm really upset and hurt. I am not going to do that whole big thing, which he would have deserved. But,
But the thing is, this woman isn't the problem.
Exactly.
And that's what I love, is that she's not treating Bex like she's the issue. Because look,
she's not.
Bex shouldn't be. She knows he's with somebody. So I'm not trying to say Bex is innocent in all this. But, like, let's put the blame where it belongs.
Yeah. She goes right to him and holds him accountable. Later on, when he apologizes and she asks him, "Do you know what for?" I was so glad she said. She said it, because oftentimes in TV shows, the guy just comes up and I'm sorry, and then the girl goes, "Okay," and then that's it.
There are entire comedy sketches dedicated to just learn to say you're sorry now, son, before you get married. Because you're going to be saying it all the time, and you'll never know why, but you just have to learn to say, I'm sorry, and I'm wrong.
Yep. You don't even have to mean it. You just have to say it.
It's so gaslighty. It's so gross.
Yep.
The whole attitude is just like, bitches be crazy. Mm-hmm. And this moment with her asking, do you know why you're sorry? He seems so taken aback that she would even ask, like, what do you mean, do I know why? That's not the point of me doing this. The point of me doing this is for you to tell me it's fine now.
Yep.
Then there's also the aspect of simply apologizing. So many people think that in itself sets things right. And it's like, no, you have to apologize by not continuing to do the fucked up thing that led to them being upset with you. Mm-hmm. Which, first of all, you can't stop doing if you don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. And secondly, you aren't going to be able to just walk past this apology and go on with your life and keep living the exact same way. And so many people think that they can. Mm-hmm. That just apologizing, all they have to do is acknowledge that the other person's upset, and that's it. And that's not actually the apology. What you're saying is the preliminary step to the apology, actually.
That's the I'm sorry you were upset apology.
An apology is actually changed behavior.
And he doesn't know when she says, He
genuinely doesn't. And in this moment with Roy up there, he says something about jealousy.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who he was talking about, but she says something like, you think jealousy is cool?
And he's like...
And starts to realize, what he's playing a little bit.
He says, because at first, she's like, yeah, it's not cool, you had the other girl. And he was like, oh, it's nothing, I'm just building my brand. And...
That's right.
She said, oh, you think jealousy is cool? And he says, I don't know. I don't get jealous. Or I've never been jealous or something And that's when she's like, oh, okay, well, watch this. And she ends up doing a pretty shitty thing, which is using Roy to get back at Jamie. And ends up in a bidding war against the same old lady that lost Jamie.
I love it.
And... Roy is on fucking Roy when he comes out, and Rupert is like, you have a fabulous night at the pool, sipping martinis or daiquiris or something. And he's like, no pool, no
catching rays,
no rays.
Yep. He basically is like, we're gonna be inside a pub, we're not going to leave, and that's gonna be the day. So enjoy. But yeah, she starts bidding on him, and for a second he's startled, and then he sees the body language between her and Jamie, and immediately knows
she's bidding on Roy, but staring dead in the face to Jamie, and Roy is immediately aware that this isn't about him. None of this has anything to do with him. He's just sort of standing up there like an asshole. It's just it's a real cringy moment, and then she loses, the old lady wins, she stalks off. And then later on, when she's having the moment with Jamie about apologies, Roy interrupts and was just called her right out on her shit. Mm-hmm. And she apologizes on the spot and takes accountability.
Immediately knows that what he is saying is exactly what was going on.
Doesn't try to pretend it was anything different. She is immediately just you know what, you were right. that was a shitty thing for me to do, and I'm sorry. And you know it's like a real... And Roy is like, thank you.
The heat. The heat. She apologizes, and they lock eyes, and there is a moment of just like, oh... And again, Jamie feels so superfluous. The adults are having a moment. Jamie, go find a Mountain Dew or something. I don't know.
Jamie says nobody was even bidding on you. Like, that's the thing. Like, he's just he's outside of what's happening in this moment.
Walking ego. I love when he's trying on that suit and he's complaining that there's no graffiti on it.
God.
I think is what he's
that
saying.
is exactly what he said. There's like no buttons and no zippers and no graffiti. He says, I look like a banker. And she says, not with those pants as tight as they are. And he says, okay, I look like a banker with a great cock. And she says, if those exist, I wouldn't be dating you.
Listen, man, try it out. I bet they're out there. There's gotta be. This is the thing for me with Jamie, is I cannot imagine that he's that good in bed. A guy that self-centered. I just don't see it.
Yeah.
I just don't see it. You know, like, I feel like she hooks up with somebody with more of, like, a grounded personality, and she's going to be like, oh, shit.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's probably not the best sex she's ever had. He seemed really eager to go down on her, though. Like, very willing and eager. So that lends
I've
itself.
had guys very eager to do that did not know what the fuck they were doing.
But you don't ask those guys to do it then. After one or two times, you know they're terrible. You don't tell them to get on their knees. You skip doing that. Or maybe you don't. I don't know.
Right. Totally.
I mean, if you're down there, you're just wasting my time. I'm not going to keep sitting you down there.
It just kind of is like, maybe you'll get it eventually. Like, maybe you just need time. You know? But
I guess in a more serious relationship.
Look, I'm just saying, like, eagerness isn't nothing. It counts for something. And there's just a vibe for me of her. She's setting this standard. Has to be very clear with him, or else he wouldn't. And I'm glad that she's setting the standard.
Right.
Like, good for her. You know, that's the way it should be. But it would be cool if she didn't have to, like, say it and set it out, because he just had the urge to do things for her first to begin with.
Right.
If that was his instinct, you know?
She tells Rebecca that when she's talking about how she's been dating footballers for so long, and she mentions that, you know, she was dating a 23-year-old when she was whatever age, and now she's almost 30, and she's still dating a 23-year-old. So that suggests that she's been staying in this general age range for a while now, not just with Jamie. So if she were to decide to go out with somebody that was older, I like to think that the sex would have to be better, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if she's only been dating 20-year-olds this whole time.
I think it has to be. That said, I mean, I know I'm shipping her and Roy, and I stand by it. I really do. But I do not want to be in the locker room with the two of them if that happens, because I feel like that is going to be a problem with a capital P for problem.
Just when
the P is for problem.
Just when they were starting to come together.
You know? And maybe there'll be a moment where it turns out it's fine, but I don't know. I just want them together. I really do.
You're just like, fuck it, get together, damn the team. Fuck soccer.
It would require Jamie growing up quite a bit.
Do you even imagine that?
He's certainly not there. Jamie's whole vibe is so fascinating, because it's like the big fish in a small pond thing, and I would be fascinated to see him go play with a team that's like a lot better, and whether or not he would be able to maintain this attitude.
Well, I think it's one thing that's been very consistent for these 4 episodes is that Jamie really is as good as he says he is. Like, that is not. Oh, sure. Yeah, that's like not being disputed. But I mean, like, his attitude. His attitude, right? Like, how does that play in a larger market or whatever? Yeah. But the thing about sports, at least what I hear, because y'all know I don't watch shit no more. It appears that if you are that good, you could just fucking do and be however the fuck you want. Nobody gives a shit. So, so the performance, we find out that we talked about it a little bit earlier. Ted puts it together. Rupert is full of shit. Do you know who Robbie Williams is? Do you remember him? I meant to Google to see if I was right, if anybody in the chat remembers. But I am pretty sure Robbie Williams, who's like a pretty big pop star in the UK, he was in a boy band in the 90s called Take That,
oh my God,
I think.
Okay.
But he was like in the mid 90s. It was like a 5-boy band situation called Take That.
I remember that.
And he was so cute. And then they disappeared, as far as I knew. And then, like, in the early 2000s, I started seeing him around again. I was like, this motherfucker got a whole career over there. He's, like, huge. But, like, for some reason, it never really, like, crossed back over here, which is a real shame. And when I first saw this episode, even though it became clear that he wasn't going to be in it, I kept thinking to the very end.
He was just going to show up.
He was going to show up. And I was so excited, and then it never happened. And I was like holding on to the last second. And there's a line Higgins is like at one point, does he ask Ted, do you think Rebecca knows what the real Adele looks like?
Oh my God,
something
I love
like
that. I forgot about that. And this is when Ted has like, all right, I have to go and do something. Because he is not going to play Rupert's little fucking game and let him be the guy who rescues the part. Like, the fact that Rupert puts himself in the position where he'd be rescuing it, and it's totally artificial, it says so much about him. Like,
right.
There are people who would rescue a thing and be celebrated for doing that because it was the thing to do, because they had the power to do it. He just doesn't care if it's real. It's only about whether or not people celebrate him for that. He is what Jamie will grow up to be like if he isn't checked.
Yeah. When Ted calls him out on it, there's not even a hint of like embarrassment or, oh, you caught me or anything. He's just like, well, that would make me a real, I don't know, son of a bitch.
Piece of shit.
Piece of shit. There you go. That's what he says. You know, there's no like, oh, I've been found out or like an embarrassment or anything. It's, you know, he's so good in this role.
That would make me a piece of shit. It's so wild because he says it like, little stinker. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, not that kind of piece of shit. Like, genuinely just a bad person, dude.
Yep.
And not that would like matter to him, but the vibe he gives off about it is like a mischievous little boy.
Mm-hmm. That's his whole like gimmick, you know?
Yeah.
That's his whole There's this the running joke of the episode with Higgins like trying to find somebody, you know, to fill for Robbie Williams. There's another line where Rebecca asks him how it's going. He's like, I've got an exhaustive list of people who cannot do it. So
I swear to God.
We're narrowing it down.
I have to give her some props for being like just leaving it to him and not continuing to obsess.
I think because Rupert has got her off her game. You know what I mean? I think she's like distracted sort of with Rupert's shenanigans, and it kind of gives Higgins some cover.
Yeah, that's true.
The guy who performs, Cam Cole, is a real life busker, right?
Nice.
And he got legit, you know, little low-key famous from this. So he toured, and he was in Philly. Either he just came or he's coming soon. I'm not going to get to see him. But I was in a Ted Lasso group, a huge Ted Lasso group, the only one I joined on Facebook because I was so obsessive about the show. I needed somewhere to talk about it all the time. All the time. And he was in the group, but like we didn't know. Every once in a while, he would just pop up in the comments. And after a while, we were like, he's got no blue check mark or nothing. And then after a while, we're like, fuck, are you
Wait.
Are you really him? Wait, it was really him. He was in the Facebook group with us.
How does he not have a blue check mark? Give that guy a blue check mark. He was on television.
But he was really, really nice and really, really funny. And then as the show started getting more and more popular, and his little star started to, like, rise a little bit, he would, like, share, like, I'm going on tour. And when he got the tour announcement to the U.S., it was, like, his first time touring here, you know, because he's, like, a guy who plays on the street. He was so excited. It was really, really cute to watch.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And yeah, the song he does is this, like, bluesy. It is really great.
When Rebecca says, Kim,
from somebody.
From outside.
Oh, my God. His name's on the drum, Rebecca. Get it together.
And then he just completely destroys it. And fucking Higgins cannot... the music just moves him. He cannot help himself.
Meanwhile, Beard's date is moved.
Jane.
Beard is not.
Yeah.
Eventually, he gets, like, pulled out.
Yeah.
And he does go. But it's like...
But she's already gone.
She walks away from him.
Yeah.
She's so irritated.
Yeah, I think she leaves.
And later on, Ted says something about you put the game before the dame.
Yep.
Because it's a chess club
You
thing.
did it again. And, yeah, we find out, like, a little... We get so little information about Beard, you know, what his deal is, what his first name is.
Right, true.
But that little snippet when... Because what Ted says is, you did it again. Yeah. And you're just like, huh. All right, there's a little layer.
Something.
I think we...
Another layer of the fascinating Beard onion.
That's such a great line when he's talking to Nate. What is Nate tell?
Nate was the understudy for Anita.
That's what makes Ted say it. That's right.
Yeah.
So, the episode ends with Keely breaking up with Jamie, telling him we're done.
I was so excited. I really thought this would take longer.
Do you think it'll stick?
I think so. I think she's in a sex haze.
A sex haze?
You know what I mean?
I do. It's a sex haze.
She's stigmatized.
It's not a bad thing to be.
Once she pulls out and begins to look objectively at his behavior, she's going to be like, Jesus Christ. Because that's what happens so much. You excuse a lot because you know somebody on a level that shows a slightly different side. But we just like to tell ourselves that the side that we see means that they're a totally different person than who they are publicly sometimes. And I feel like it's wild that we can do that because, and I say this as somebody who has done this myself, who somebody is publicly isn't not who they are.
Right, right.
You can't just separate all of their actions because they're in a certain setting from who they are. And I think she's just found it funny.
I was going to say it's very,
she just doesn't
casual.
take him seriously.
I mean, and I don't mean casual like they just see other people, but I mean like for her, it's this is not a lifetime thing that she's in, right? She doesn't, like you said, doesn't take him seriously, doesn't really take... She takes the relationship seriously enough that she's disappointed and hurt by the way he behaves tonight, but she's not, like, super shocked, though, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And back to the conversation she has with Rebecca in the bathroom about, like, here I am, almost 30, still doing the stuff I was doing when I was 18. Like, maybe it's also time for me to figure out who I want to be, you know?
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, and I didn't get to watch, I paused the episode, but I feel like Ted has a conversation with his wife when he's on the way to the gala. He, like, leaves a message.
He leaves her a message and then listens to a voicemail later.
And then later, coming with Beard, he listens to a voicemail and tells him that they're coming to visit. Tells Beard, you know, they'll be here whenever. What do you think? Do you have any thoughts about what that will be like to meet his family?
I don't know, because, like, it did not sound like she wanted to see him. So the fact that she's coming, all I can think is it's going to be bad news. She wants to dump him in person. And it feels very quick to be having that conversation when we haven't gotten to see her at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because normally you want to build up a relationship with both sides a little so that there's like...
Yeah, it has some weight.
An attachment there.
Right.
And I don't know if it's... I don't see this in a positive light. The vibe I'm getting here is that everything is going better for Ted than it has any right to. And this is going to be the one part of his life. He can't just save it with positivity. Sometimes that's just not going to work. And maybe that's what I was talking about like, I want to see when this eventually doesn't work for somebody. Maybe it's going to be somebody who knows him on a deeper level. And
like all the stuff that we were just talking about, like in relationship to Jamie and Keely.
It's hard to say too, because like the timing of the show is hard to read. I don't know if they do one game a week, like how long it's supposed to be that he's been there by this point.
That is a really good question.
Because it feels to me like he's been there like 2 weeks. And considering that she was just saying, I want some real space, 2 weeks does not feel like a long time.
Yeah.
But it might be a lot longer than that. It's hard for me to tell.
That's an excellent question. I don't have a good gauge of how long it's been either. I don't know how often they play. I feel like every sports team during the season is like they play once a week, right? Isn't that like standard? But then you have baseball and they play like 5 times a week. Basketball playing like 3 times a week. I have no idea what the hell is going on. So, we have somebody in the chat. Cloak is saying it's probably not been more than a month. So that seems like a really quick turnaround, like you're saying. If she was wanting space, then, you know.
That's what says, like, if it's that quick, that says to me, it's bad news. If there had been more time and then they came, it would feel like I've been really using this time to think things over. But if it's this quick, I feel like, yeah, she could send her kid by himself. I don't know how old he is supposed to be. But I mean, I was traveling by plane by myself from like 8 years old. I just think that quick, all I can think is like, he was gone and she was immediately like, this is better. Yeah, this is better. I just know it's, you know, and that's what that was my experience with getting divorced. Hanging on, a big blow up, splitting. It was painful and hard, but immediately the relief and being like, oh, okay, yeah, no, but this is the right thing to do though. There's just a sense that you get pretty quickly of whether you're feeling hopeful about this future or you're more scared and upset. And the hopefulness, I got so excited about all of the like possibilities in front of me now that I wasn't married, that I just, you know, and I'm just kind of, that's the I'm assigning all of this to her, like based on my experience, and I fully admit that, but it's just how I read it.
Right. Okay. I don't want to ask too much else because I don't want to lead you in, you know what I mean? I don't want to do that thing. There's
Keely and Rebecca at the end.
Well,
Keely
I love
breaks
that.
up with Jamie and then takes 2 bottles of champagne. And they go out and get in a rickshaw together to get drunk. And I love it.
Ted tells the story when he goes out and bumps into Rebecca and she's crying. And one of those rickshaws goes by. And she's like, have you ever been in one? And he tells the story about riding the tandem bike with his wife and how that did not go well.
I can't imagine a tandem bike kill me.
I would never.
I am way too much of a control freak to try and share that kind of thing with like... No.
I'm entirely too clumsy and uncoordinated. I would kill us both. Whoever else was on it, we would definitely die. There were some other odds and ends, but I can't think of them now. Like little bits. So if people are yelling, you know, or we didn't touch on everything, I'm sorry. There's so many jokes.
We certainly didn't.
It's impossible to like catch all the jokes. I know there's a couple of other moments with Higgins that I'm like, oh, when he's in the office and they find out Robbie Williams is canceled and she's telling him he has to like be on it, and he does this thing with his phone and then like drops it but then catches it.
Oh my god, he finally catches
it. And then he leaves and Ted yells after him, and Rebecca thanks you for all your hard work.
Which again, if that were somebody else, that feels so passive aggressive. But he's genuinely just trying to be like, hey, buddy, shut up.
And
you know,
he's
like,
just assuming that, of course, Rebecca would thank him for all his, she just slipped her mind. She's preoccupied, but she totally meant
that's
to
exactly
thank
what,
you.
like, if I said, and she thanks you for all your hard work, I would be glaring at Rebecca like, bitch, don't you? It would just have a completely different tone. You have to just nail the delivery on a lot of these lines to make them not dickish. And that's what I just love, the whole character of this reporter having to decipher all day. Are you being secretly a dick? What about right now? What about that? What about what you just said right there? Maybe that's where the dickishness is. All day, like, I feel you, man. I really do.
It's a remarkable way to move through the world and to watch someone move that way.
There's an episode of Community with Troy and Abed, and Shirley is about to have her wedding and get remarried to her ex-husband. They are aware that they are super weird, Troy and Abed are. So Troy and Abed are like, you know what let's do? Let's have a whole day where we get all of our weirdness out. And then we can just be normal for the wedding and be cool and make her day good. So they do all of this weird fucking shit, and you see like the aftermath where there's just like construction paper and costumes and dummies and weird, like, and they're like, okay, time to be normal. They're so positive when they're normal. At one point, Troy is saying something like, this is some of the best shrimp cocktail I have ever had. Did you try the scallops? My God. And he's like, sincere. But her husband-to-be is taking it all like they're fucking with him. And at one point, they say, we are not trying to screw with you, man. We are very invested in your special day. And he just gives them this look and says, walk away, man. Walk away. And I'm kind of like waiting for Ted to come up against somebody like that who is just like not as good at reading intention. Troy and Abed being normal. That's their catchphrase for that one. And
having a catchphrase is the opposite of being normal.
They don't say it that way because normally it's Troy and Abed being weird, but they say Troy and Abed being normal. Oh. And they say it in that voice, which is somehow much worse.
That's a fantastic bit. That's great.
But anyway, yeah, Jamie says, and you'd think that person would be Roy, but it's not exactly. And that's because Roy is easy to manipulate. Sorry, Roy. But you're easy to manipulate because, like, you do kind of wear your heart on your sleeve, which I feel like is kind of a good thing, even though probably you wouldn't agree with that. I'm sure he prides himself on being stoic.
Oh, absolutely.
We're at the boiling point all the time. You are the opposite of stoic.
He absolutely believes that he's just like a calm veneer and you can't tell the troubled waters that are underneath. 100%.
Bless him. It's like me trying to be mysterious. Good luck. Try and shut the fuck up. Just try it.
We can only have one mysterious person on the podcast at a time.
Exactly.
Oh, well. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I'm so happy.
I really am. I'm
so
super
happy.
mad because we can't do 2 episodes next week, and
no.
I know that. But I want to, and it's going to be so hard. 1 a week?
It's hard, ma'am.
Ouch!
Especially, this show is extraordinarily watchable. Like, you could just put it on and burn right through it, easy peasy.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. But only one episode. This is the part where it's
so hard to be the unspoiled one. The thing is, too, though, being the spoiled one and getting very excited for you to get to the thing, like me with Harry Potter, I'm just like, oh my God, I can't wait till book 4 where they do the thing. And I'm just having to wait. And that's why we kind of went too fast with Harry Potter, I think, looking back. We like packed a lot. Those were really long episodes. But I just wanted to get to certain things really soon.
Well, I mean, I wasn't planning on doing 2 tonight, but you saw you got 0 resistance from me. So,
yeah.
I will be stronger next time when you text me.
We're still ending before we do half the time.
Oh my God, it's already 11 o'clock. Yeah, I got to get off this joint.
Yeah.
But, well, I am so glad that you're enjoying this show. I really am. I knew you would love it, but I wanted you to love it.
I mean, we're only on episode 4. It could turn, but
it's
so
true.
far so good.
It's true, but it won't.
Sean's completely confident it will not. Well, if you're listening to this and you want to get in on this chat, become a patron at the $10 Spoiled Rotten tier. I'm pretty sure it's $10. And patreon.com/unspoiled to do that. And you also would get live footage of me and Miles talking about the Sookie Stackhouse novels, which has been quite a trip also. And we're figuring out how we're going to cover True Blood because people apparently want us to do that, even though it's very bad eventually.
Really?
But Miles has never seen any of it.
That is fun. I mean, it's fun. It's also terrible.
It's going to be fun, I think.
Yeah.
Like, it's different. Like, somebody brought up the fear, very justified, the fear of, like, it becoming a hate watch. But the thing is, if I go into it knowing it's bad and warning my co-host it gets bad, that's a totally different vibe than going in wanting to like something and feeling the potential and watching it fall apart in front of me.
Right.
So
it's all about managing your expectations.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like a hate watch of True Blood, like, I feel like that could be a really good time. We wouldn't cover it one episode at a time. It'd probably be like 3 per podcast or something.
But some of the bonkers storylines, some of the gorgeous people, so much sex everywhere with everyone.
So much bloody sex.
Right? I feel like with the right attitude going into it, I mean, it's even when it was a disaster, it was still fun, you know. It wasn't good, but it was still fun.
God. So yeah, if you want to just listen to the Sookie Stackhouse ones, that's $5 and up. If you want to come to the live cast, that's also $10. Both this and that one are on the $10. $10 is probably like my best value tier because then you also get the postcard. But at $20, you get an extra 2 recordings of me and Rashawn on Unsober. On our regular months. It has been in extreme circumstances the past couple months, so we're only doing 1, but we're coming up. We're going to be getting back to the 2.
Yeah.
And those are a very good time also. All right, I'm going to wrap. Thank you guys so much for coming to the chat.
Yeah, guys, it was fun.
Here.
Thank you. I'm sorry, but you know the rules. I'm not allowed to read the chat. But I'm sure
you were very good.
I'm sure it was chock full of interesting observations and tidbits and maybe some corrections. Just thank you for your service.
I didn't really see too many, just like mentions of jokes, but it's like you said, we can't just go joke by joke because it would just take too long. So yeah, I just really appreciate you all. I hope that folks are out there enjoying the coverage and that we're doing it justice. And until next week, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
No, my hands won't be tied down, and I will not lay them down, 'cause I can finally see the truth. So simple but so clear, accepting an ocean's depths were out of reach for me and you. If you're coming up for air, breathing in, you know I'll be there when you first begin. And when everybody's telling us we have no time, we'll prove them wrong again.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.